Chaiva Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Vidanta Surya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhrit Satam Nasta Presha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagata Sevaya Bhagati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'd like to first of all thank all of you for having me to participate in this wonderful Sangha, because it is very rare to see so many devotees come together. Thanks to Sri God Prabhu, he's doing a fantastic job of bringing so many devotees together in the study of Bhagavatam. Having finished the study of Bhagavad Gita, it is nice to have devotees engage in study of Bhagavatam. It is this only, as in Bhagavatam itself, it is said that that wherever Bhagavatam is heard, Bhagavatam is recited, Bhagavatam is discussed, not only is that particular place purified, not only are the participants purified, but the entire universe is purified. In the first canto, 5th chapter, the word Jagat Pavitram is used. 1.5.11, Narada Muni uses the word Jagat Pavitram. Jagat Pavitram means that wherever these topics of Krishna are discussed, in whatever forum, the entire universe gets purified. So it's very encouraging, and even more so since it's on Zoom. It's going through the internet, and probably by the time the waves go to the satellite and come back, I think definitely we can be rest assured that a lot of places are getting purified along the way. So Zoom is also helping in purifying it. So having said that, Prabhu, I'm at your service. Let me know what we should do.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We are really fortunate to have you. Prabhuji has been in Krishna consciousness, practicing sincerely the spiritual life for over 3 decades now. Prabhuji is disciple of His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. Along with Mataji, they are both serving, in their ashram in US. He's very learned, like exemplary. Practices what he preaches. Ardent lover of Srila Prabhupada and his Guru Maharaj, and very, very caring devotee. So we are blessed to have Prabhuji in our forum. And so Prabhuji, we have completed first 3 cantos so far, and devotees have put forward the questions. And I just want to check if they are visible to everyone, these questions.
Yes, I see the questions here.
Okay. So Prabhuji, the devotees have submitted these questions, and I'll read. Should we go sequentially, Prabhuji?
Yeah, we can try. We can do that and see if something else comes up. We can start sequentially. That might work.
Okay. So first question is, when was Srimad Bhagavatam written? The time point when Shukadev Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj, was it already in written format, or when was it written?
So the Bhagavatam, actually, there are different understandings. First of all, when Vyasadeva, he took the one Veda that was there and he divided it into the 4 Vedas to be able to have more easily assimilated by the people in general. But then he also wrote commentaries, which are the Puranas, and so the Bhagavatam is one of the 18 Puranas that Vyasadeva compiled when he originally When Vyasadeva originally received the Bhagavatam, he only received 4 slokas. Those are called the seed verses as Canto 2, Chapter 9, 32 to 36. Those are known as the seed verses. So when Bhagavatam was revealed, when in Vyasadev's heart, when he was compiling all the Vedas, bifurcating the Vedas and compiling the Puranas, he heard the 4 slokas of Bhagavatam. Now that are the seed verses. Now that he expanded, but when he expanded the verses, like all of the Puranas, they were not Amal. It was not Amal. So what happened is Vyasadeva, so even after compiling all the way, after bifurcating the Vedas, compiling the Puranas, he was very dissatisfied. And one of the Puranas he had compiled was the Bhagavatam at that time. He was very dissatisfied. But then his guru, Narada Muni, comes to him, as we know in the 4th chapter, he comes to him and asks him, why are you so dissatisfied, my dear Prabhu? At that time, what happens is that the conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva takes place. And then Vyasadeva edits. See, the word Vyasa means one who edits. So Vyasadeva actually edits the Vedas. When we say compile, we mean he actually brings them together and does the editing job of it. So then what happens is Vyasadeva edits the Bhagavatam again on the instructions of Narada Muni. He edits the Bhagavatam to become more Amala, in the sense that that's why if you notice the first 3 verses of the first canto of Bhagavatam, that word Amala Puranam comes in place, because now Vyasadeva has made it a focus that the original Bhagavatam that he had expanded from the 3 verses, it was not Amala, it was Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha was also being mentioned in it, and it was not exactly Amala. So then what happens is, after Narada Muni tells him, my dear Prabhu, you have given all this Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but you haven't really focused on the devotional service to Lord Krishna, which is actually the only thing that will help us in this world. And we can see that today, in modern days, it's becoming more and more thing that only devotional service can help us in this mad modern society that we have. No other solution can really help us. So then Vyasadeva edits that, and after he edits it, he gives it to Sukadeva Goswami. And when he gives it to Sukadeva Goswami, then Sukadeva Goswami gives it to Maharaj Parikshit. And Vyasadeva is sitting in the audience, as we also know in the Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva is sitting in the audience, including Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, they're all sitting in the audience. And they listen to Sukadev's Goswami's his presentation to Maharaj Parikshit. When they're listening to that, later on, Vyasadeva also listens in to Suta Goswami. So one version is the 4 verses that Vyasadeva gets. He expands it, then he edits it, gives it to Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami gives his version to Maharaj Parikshit based on Maharaj Parikshit's questions that Maharaj Parikshit asks him. Based on that, the flow of Bhagavatam goes that way. And when Suta Goswami is asked questions by the sages in Naimisharanya, the flow of Bhagavatam goes according to the rishis of Naimisharanya. So Vyasadeva, having heard all this, then finally compiles the version of Bhagavatam that we know today. So the version we know today is after it has gotten through a few editions of it. So I hope that answers the question, Prabhu. And timeline-wise, it was done before Kali Yuga. It was just on the onset of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga had not yet started. The sages in Naimisharanya had gathered together to actually start performing this 1,000 years of sacrifices to help the people of the Kali Yuga. But they realized the sacrifices that they were going to perform was not really going to be effective. So that is why when Suta Goswami, when they come, they say, my dear sir, you probably have the best solution for Kali Yuga, because you know where the principles of religion have gone to take shelter after the disappearance of Lord Krishna from this planet. So you please tell us where these principles of religion are and what will really make all the people happy all the time. So that's another interesting question that sages of Naimisharanya put to Suta Goswami. What will make people happy all the time, and all people, not only a few people, but all people? So that's the first question, Prabhu. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Does anyone has any question or comment on the first question? Okay. If not, we move on to the second question. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So second question is in reference to the verse 1.2.21. Do you want me to display the verses also, Prabhuji?
Prabhuji, one
I-
short,
I-
can you ask one small question
Yes.
regarding
Uh-huh.
Hare Krishna?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji just wanted to know, like we have 18 different Puranas. So in that we know that Markandeya Puran or Vishnu Puran. So like this is Markandeya Puran. All these were written by Vyasdev only. And
Yes, yes. They were all compiled by Vyasadeva, and in fact, that is why you'll see the Bhagavad Puran mentioned in many Purans, even the Matsya Puran and all that. You'll see the Bhagavad is mentioned in that because Vyasadeva was the compiler of all of them.
thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
In fact, even the Upanishads and all that, he was compiler of the Upanishads. He was compiler of bifurcating the Atharva Veda and all that. He was kind of he is the editor incarnate of Krishna. I hope that answers your question, Prabhu.
Thanks.
Ji,
So,
Prabhuji.
thank you. Thanks for asking. So second question is from verse number 1.2.21. The translation, thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive action is terminated when one sees the self as master. So the question is, what does it mean by self as a master? Yes.
Yeah, that display is nice, Prabhu. Thank you for displaying the verse and the thing. So, if you see the chain of fruitive actions, the fruitive actions comes because of our identification with the body. It's called ahankar. The false identification of body is what starts the fruitive action. And the chain happens is because every action has a reaction. So what happens is we identify with the body, and then when we identify with the body, we identify with the material, what do you call it, material engagement, and then we start a whole chain after that, because action leads to reaction, reaction leads to action, actions and go on. The chain continues. Now, just as a side thing, Prabhu, can you display 327 of the Bhagavad Gita, since you're, I think, 327 of Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, on a separate tab, we can bring up Bhagavad Gita. So you see this Prakritiya Kriyamanani Guna Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. Now, if you go to the translation, it says the spiritual soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out with three modes of material nature. Now, if you go to the purport, just go down a few this thing. It says the person in false ego takes all the credit for doing everything independently, and that is a symptom of his nescience. So if you notice, it is this ahankar vimudatma. Now, muda is actually a fool. Vimuda means a supreme fool, fool number one. Vimuda means supreme fool, fool number one. So that's ahankar is what creates this foolishness, this feeling that I am the doer. Unless I do it, something will happen, so on and so forth. So coming back to the verse that we are discussing, which is based on a question. If you go down in the purport, next paragraph, I think. One second. Yeah, good. Just it says here in the first paragraph. Let's see So you see that there are many theories. There are many other theories, but all these different speculations are at once clear as soon as Sri Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti yoga. So what happens is there are many in the purport, Prabhupada explains that there are many speculations about what the identity of the jiva is. Is the jiva a Brahman, or is jiva is it only Brahman, or is it, is God Brahman? Is jiva Brahman? And Paramatma speculations are there, Brahman speculations there. Then Dvaita philosophy, whether Advaita philosophy, Dvaita philosophy, Vishishta Advaita philosophy. So there are a lot of thoughts, a lot of understandings, and a lot of misgivings. So now what happens is, through the process of devotional service, that is important, the devotional service part, then what happens is Krishna reveals himself to us. So he says there are many other theories, but all these different speculations are at once cleared off as soon as Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti yoga. Sri Krishna is like the sun, and the materialistic speculations of absolute truth are like the darkest midnight. So as soon as Krishna appears in the heart, within one's heart, the darkness of material speculation of the absolute truth and the living beings is at once cleared off by the presence is cleared off. So that is the critical thing. So what happens is, at some point, when we keep on doing service, our life experience will show us, as you get older especially, I can tell you from my own personal life experiences, there are times when I plan something and I want to do something in a certain way. Now, in the earlier days, what would happen is I would get agitated if the things didn't happen in some way. I would, even in devotion life, it can happen. For example, I would say that, oh, in this program, we will conduct it this way. We'll do the Aarti at 9 o'clock. We'll do this thing at 9:30 and all that. But guess what? Suddenly, the Kirtan will go on so nicely that we can't stop the Kirtan. Everybody's enjoying the Kirtan. So we have to wait and say, okay, instead of 9 o'clock, let's do the Aarti at 9:30. We'll have to kind of move the things. It's very frustrating. And there are some people, new people want to go away. They said that you're only there for 2 hours program, but this program has become 3 hours. But you don't want to stop a nice kirtan and a nice experience, Vaikuntha experience, just because somebody has to go back in 2 hours. So it used to be very frustrating sometimes in conducting some of these programs and some things like that. It used to be a challenge. Should I keep the time, or should I let the experience speak for itself, and so on and so forth? And invariably, things would work out. Somehow, it would work out. The person who had to go will say, okay, you know what, I'll just go and come back or something. And in the long run, that person will still come back and become a devotee. Even though they went away in the middle of the program, they'll come back and be a devotee because whatever experience they got was very nice, or something like that. The point I was making by this example is that when we do things, we have a certain idea how something has to be done because of our own ahankar, because of our own identification with the body and with the circumstances. But what happens eventually is that as we grow older with life experiences, we start finding that Krishna is actually got a plan already made for us. He's got a plan for us which we could not see. And if we had seen that plan, we may not have liked the plan. That's another problem. If we see the plan too early, we may not like it. We may say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to. Krishna may say, no, my plan is I want you to serve devotees, let's say, and I want to be a preacher instead. So if Krishna tells me finally, when he reveals that I'm actually better in serving devotees rather than being a preacher, I'm doing more. I'm giving a better contribution to the world. Then I might not like it, because I might like to be a preacher, but I might find that I'm better suited to serve devotees because I have a loving heart or something like that. So sometimes if Krishna reveals his plan too early for us, we may not like it. But through devotional service, we actually find that what Krishna has for us is really the beautiful plan, and we start seeing him as the master. The self as a master. In some of the earlier versions of this of Bhagavatam, which I have read, very early printings of Bhagavatam, this S was in a capital S. It was a capital S. It was not a small s. It was capital. It was so the self that was little easier to understand, because when it was capital S, then we would understand that. It was speaking of the sloka was speaking about Krishna being the master. I hope that kind of answers that question, depending on.
Oh, so when it is talking about self as the master, means self is not self, is Krishna.
Correct, correct. It is self the master. Because what happens is, even we see that Narada Muni is saying that when you do devotional service, you see both. You see everything. You see the self, Krishna as the master. You see yourself, the small s. You see that self as yourself being the servant of Krishna, and then you see his energy is prakriti. You see all that, and all this is revealed to you. That's how even for Brahma, because of his tapa, after his penance, when he sat down in penance, and everything was revealed to him. It was not only Krishna the master, the individual jiva, plus the entire cosmic manifestation was also revealed to him, and that's how he was able to create. There's a Anasya is saying something. Okay. Yeah, and the self also, one also becomes what call it master of one's senses, and also becomes a master of one's senses. So in that self, we also, that's why we are called Goswami, somebody who's realized. That's another aspect of it, that when the small self, you become a master of your senses. So that's why you call it Goswami. That is, you're a master of the sense. Go.
Okay. So they're like both things. If this is a small s, self as a master means self is a master of the senses. Now you're Goswami. And again, as Prabhuji highlighted, like here I've opened a purport of Bhagavad Gita 1.30, where it is said, it's a purport of, I'm now unable to stand here any longer, I'm forgetting myself. Prabhupada says that no one is interested in the Supreme Self, and as here is the capital here.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any question or comment on this? Okay. Well, thank you, Prabhuji. We'll move on to the next question, which is third question. Is from the verse number 1.5.37. Let me open this. Okay. And this is the most confidential part. Here it is, Prabhuji. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant, remember the glories of Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his different plenary portions expanded as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. These expansions are original deities for all other truths, namely either Vishnu Tattvas or Shakti Tattvas. So the question is, what does the above para mean?
So the thing is this is Suta Goswami right now answering the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya, and they are starting from text 6, where he answers the first question about what will make everybody happy, Suprasiddhati. He's starting from that text. He elaborates the process of devotional service and Haritoshanam as the only solution for all living entities to be happy in all circumstances. So that's important. All living entities in all circumstances. It's not some living entities in all circumstances. It is not some all living entities in some circumstances. It's all living entities in all circumstances. So now what happens is, as he's explaining this, you see, sometimes what happens is when you what do you call it? Now that question was not directly asked of Suta Goswami, but it was hinted at it that you were always polite, you were always very submissive to your spiritual masters, and you learned the truth. So therefore, you please explain that to me. So now what happens is Suta Goswami, while he's explaining all these things, he gets into this. If you go back to the sloka itself on top, he while he's finishing the explanation, he decides, you know what, why don't I just, because explanation is okay. Sometimes, as preachers, you'll see that happening. When you're explaining something you're trying to explain something to somebody, you'll tell them to chant. They'll say, oh yeah, Prabhu, but this Prabhu, but that Prabhu. Then at some point you might say, you know what? Okay, why don't you take this breed and let's chant around together? Let's do that. You might do that as a, instead of just giving them asking them to chant, you might actually sit with them and chant, which will be probably more effective as an experience for them than asking them to chant. And when they go back home, they will not chant. So therefore, what happens is this happens again in the 5th chapter, this thing, because now it says, let us chant the glories of Vasudeva along with this. So Narada Muni is explaining to Vyasadeva. Suta Goswami is explaining that Narada Muni is explaining this to Vyasadeva. And then what happens is Narada Muni just then says, okay, now you know what, I've spoken enough on what should be done. Let us at least remember the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Thubhyam Vasudeva Dhimahi Pradyumna Anirudaya Nama Shankarsana Cha. Now, wherever there's Om, Namo, and Dhimahi, these are all seed letters for even for Gayatri mantra it is there, and for a lot of the Vedic mantras, Om, Namo, and Dhimahi are seed letters for that. So, in other words, this is a confidential mantra. This is a confidential mantra because of that, and this is a mantra that worships the original expansions of Krishna, the first Chaturvyuha, as we call it, expansion of Krishna. So therefore, Narada Muni gets into his own meditation while after finishing things. So the paragraph basically means that this is a confidential mantra which Narada Muni is sharing, which was part of his spiritual development, which was a mantra that he was given to chant to remember the first expansion of Krishna, the Chaturvyuha. I don't know if that answers the question, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So is there any other question on this? Any comment or any question?
So these are the original 4 deities. And so when you say that, if you go back to the purport, the paragraph that we're discussing, the part, so they are the original 4 deities, and they are the source of both the Vishnu Tattva and the Shakti Tattvas. These are the original 4 deities. So he's paying obeisances to the original 4 deities, Dhimahi.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So we'll go on to the 4th question.
By the way, Prabhu, I just wanted to let you know I'm not a very learned person, okay? So I'm trying to explain.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
You might have to verify it with other people later on, anyway. Good,
So,
Prabhu.
4th question is 1.6.13. The question is from the purport. Lord Chaitanya did not accept the name of a sannyasi, and in the age of Kali, the so-called sannyasi should not change their former names following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. So I'll open 1.6.13.
Yeah. So what happens is, now the word sannyas is not just, first of all, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see Gopinath Acharya telling the devotees there that when the discussion came about whether Lord Chaitanya is bona fide or not, some people were criticizing him not being bona fide. Then Gopinath Acharya says explains to those people that Lord Chaitanya does not rely on external formalities. He kind of brings that up during the conversation, that he does not rely on external formalities. And then when you look at the external formalities, then when you study what are the external formalities, first of all, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas in the Shankara, Laya Sampradaya, which is unusual. He took sannyas from Keshav Bharati. That itself is unusual because you're supposed to take sannyas from a Vaishnava Sampradaya. That itself is unusual. Secondly, in the Shankara Sampradaya, there are number of categories of sannyasis. For example, the Bharati and I can't remember the others. They all take the title depending on what they represent. There's some sannyasis who are very good in controlling the senses. Some sannyasis are who are very austere, who live only in water. Things like that. There are different aspects in which they are austere, and their penances are of different kinds. Somebody is Kshetra Sannyas, somebody is a Parivrajaka Acharya, things like that. So they have this different things, and each of the sannyas orders, as you call it, have a title for it. So if you're the top three titles, I think Bharati's, I can't remember the other two right now off my head. I only remember Bharati because Keshav Bharati was his guru. So there are a few. I can give a link later on if you want to that article about how these different sannyas thing are. So the thing is that if you notice, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken any one of those names, either Bharati or any of the other names, it would be very limiting for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was beyond any formal sannyasi. He was beyond any particular order of sannyasi. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was eventually going to give this Yuga Dharma. So if he had taken on a name which is what do you call it, belonging to just one order, then it would have been very limiting for him. He would be just typified as belonging to that order, and he wouldn't be free to give the Yuga Dharma for the age, which is Harinam Sankirtan. So that's why Lord Chaitanya maintained his original name, even though he took sannyas from a Shankara order, and even though he took sannyasi order from the highest, namely the Keshav Bharati, the Bharati Sampradaya. So I hope that clarifies things.
And also, it is said, Prabhuji, that in this age of Kali, the so-called sannyasi should not change their former name. So this is also a directive to them that they should not.
Yeah, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya.
Okay, sure. Okay.
And in fact, in this age, it's even said that one should not take sannyas. I mean, even that is said because you see, the thing is, sannyas is a very, I mean, the true sannyas, is a very high. What do you call it? Let's put it to maintain sannyas in the original form or whatever. To maintain sannyas, one has to come out of a very good Grihastha ashram. I mean, if the Grihastha ashram is strong, it is said in our Varnashram system, if the Grihastha is a pivot, if the Grihastha ashram is the pivot of the Varnashram system, if the Grihastha ashram is strong, then the Brahmacharya ashram will be strong. If the Grihastha ashram is strong, the Vanaprastha ashram will be strong, because what comes out of the Grihastha ashram are the Vanaprastha, they come out of Grihastha ashram, and the sannyasis come out of the Vanaprastha. So all the three ashrams will get stronger if the Grihastha ashram is strong. And we see that in the case of Srila Prabhupada and other, we see the case where Prabhupada was an excellent Grihastha, because of which his sannyas was also was of the highest order. So and when he started taking Vanaprastha in the sense of traveling to Jhansi and all that, we see that Prabhupada was able to maintain those orders very nicely, the Vanaprastha and sannyas in that sense, because his Grihastha life also was led impeccably. Now, of course, Prabhupada is kind of different because he was a Nitya Siddha. And I think, but he showed by his own example how these orders have to be all maintained in a proper way. Anyway, that's the thing on the side.
Thank you. The next is from 2.2.27. I'll just open.
One second, Prabhu. I'm getting a.
Can I read this, Prabhu?
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. So 2.2.27, in that planet of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement nor old age nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties, save that sometimes due to consciousness there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. So this verse says, in this planet, in that planet, there is no bereavement, no, not old age and not death. The question is, there is no death as well. How is it? Because we have heard that Brahma Bhavana Loka, like there is always death in all these material planets. So how come there is no death in Satyaloka is the question.
One side, I was just looking at, I was just researching, one side also note, and this, by the way, the sannyas thing is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to make sure that, by keeping his original name, to tell people that, that whatever your order may be, the servitude to the spiritual master should not be minimized in any way. Because there's a tendency for, saying that, okay, your the spiritual master taking sannyas is like, I'm now independent of spiritual master, but in a sense, by keeping his original, he was trying to maintain that also. I was looking at some other texts that mentioned that. So I just wanted to add that to that. Now let's do this Satyaloka thing. Yeah, so could you repeat the question again, Prabhu?
Sure, Prabhuji. This verse 2.2.27 mentions that in that planet of Satyaloka there is neither bereavement nor old age nor death. So the question is, how come in Satyaloka there is no death? Because we have heard that in a material planets, from topmost to bottom, there is old age, death.
Okay. So the first thing is that Satyaloka, Brahmaloka are interchangeable. Now, Prabhupada has mentioned two things in two places. In some places, he says Brahma went back to his original planet after, especially when in Priyavarta's pastime. He says after he came to instruct Priyavarta, he went back to his planet Brahma, to Satyaloka. In other places, he uses the word Brahmaloka. And sometimes he says that Satyaloka is next to Brahmaloka, is next door to Brahmaloka. So he's given different things. So you could take it as Satyaloka is Brahmaloka, or you can take it as Satyaloka is next to Brahmaloka and has the same qualities as Brahmaloka. Satyaloka and Brahmaloka are similar. So that's one thing between Satyaloka and Brahmaloka. It's interchangeable. Prabhupada has used it in both ways. Now to answer this question, let's go to 1.5.21. If you go to the purport, now, no, 1 second, this is it one? No, sorry, 5.5.21, Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu, 5.5.21, not one.
Sure, Prabhu.
5.5.21.
5.
So 5.1.21, sorry, 5.1.21. Make it 5.1.21. There you are. Yeah, that's the one I was looking at. I was wondering what happened. Okay. If you go down to the bottom of it, so now if you know, just before we go down, Prabhu, just let's go up. So you see this here, Prabhupada says this, Lord Brahma, after was then worshipped by Manu, who respected to satisfy him, as well as he could, Priyavarta and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinge of resentment. Having engaged Priyavarta in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode Satyaloka. You see, here he says his abode Satyaloka. So it kind of, uses Satyaloka sometimes as Brahma's abode, and sometimes he uses the word Brahmaloka. So let's go down. Okay. Now the last line, it says Lord Brahma's, if you can highlight that, Prabhu, Lord Brahma's abode is practically in the Vedic literature, starting from Vedic literatures. Or we can do this. Let's read from this one. Therefore, we cannot. I'll read that. Therefore, we cannot factually comprehend even 12 hours of Brahma's life. It's in second paragraph, just after the question mark, if you're looking where I'm reading from. Yeah. Therefore, we cannot comprehend 12 hours. Yeah, that's there you go. was to say nothing of 100 years that constitute his entire lifetime. How then can we understand his abode? The Vedic literatures that describe that in Satyaloka there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. In other words, since Satyaloka is situated next to Brahmaloka on the Brahman or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha Loka. Lord Brahma's abode is practically indescribable from our present status. Therefore, it has been described as Avan Manasa Gochara, or beyond the description of our words and the imagination of our minds. That's an interesting statement. Srimad Bhagavatam 2:26-27 thus describes the abode of Lord Brahma, yet dvai paradhyanya tad yu parameshyam na yatra soka na jara na mrityu na yatra shoko na jara na mrityu na te cha chodvegaha. In Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, there is no old age, death, anxiety, or the influence of enemies. So I don't know. So what it says is that because it's so close to thing, so in some places Prabhupada says the reason there's no death or thing is because the inhabitants generally get transferred. Now, there in some places Prabhupada also says that it is in Brahmaloka and Satyaloka, only the devotees don't experience death. Because what happens is they get transferred to Vaikuntha Loka from there. If they're continuing to do devotional service in Satyaloka and Brahmaloka, then those devotees get transferred to Vaikuntha Loka, while others might have to come back to planet Earth. So it's not the entire lokas are made of the same caliber of same quality of people. So Prabhupada gives both statements. He says on one hand, like here he's saying there's no death, no old age, no disease. On the other hand, he says yes, from Brahma Loka all the way to the end, you have birth, death, old age, and disease. He gives both statements. So we have to, in this case, we have to accept Prabhupada's statement that because it is right next to Vaikuntha Loka, that for the devotees there is no death. I think they get just transferred to. And two things. One is generally, as a rule, for all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, because it is such a long duration of time, it's as good as not having death. That is one way Prabhupada explains it. The other is that being right next to Vaikuntha Loka, it's as good as, but it's not that there's no death, no old age, no disease. It's as good as. So it is not Vaikuntha Loka yet. And then the question comes up, then who think are the beneficiaries of Brahmaloka? It is the devotees who experience no death, no old age, no disease, because they are they're liberated souls then, because they're devotees, and they get transferred to Vaikuntha Loka.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. And any other question on this? Any comment? Okay, if not, we move on to the next, which is 2.9.17. So the question is from the translation, Prabhuji. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was the factual Supreme Lord, enjoying his own abode. So the question is what this temporary character is.
Okay, so if you go down the purport, where is the yeah? So if you notice, it says he explains what the 4, the 16, and etc. Now the sentence it says the insignificant opulences. The last line, Prabhu. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there. Insignificant opulences numbering 8, the Ashta Siddhis, attained by the yogis for temporary overlordship, are also under his control. but it is naturally full with, but he is naturally full with all such powers without any effort, and therefore he is the supreme Lord. So what happens is he's talking about this Ashtasiddhis. The Ashtasiddhis are of a temporary nature, and if the yogis get the Ashtasiddhis, even if the yogis acquire the Ashtasiddhis, it is only for a temporary time. It's like Prabhupada says, temporary overlordship. So that is the temporary character of the Ashtasiddhis. The Ashtasiddhis are temporary in their nature, that they're not siddhis that you, it's only Krishna who has all the siddhis forever without any effort. I don't know if that answers the question. So the temporary character is the Ashtasiddhis. They are temporary in character.
Sure, sure. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Any question on this? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next, which is 2.9.24. Prabhuji is solving a lot of our long-pending things. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So the question is from the translation. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potency is penance only. So the question is, why is it a penance for Lord?
Okay, to do that, let's go back to the verse, Prabhu. The first line of the purport, Prabhupada says, in executing penance, one must be determined to return home back to Godhead and must decide to undergo all types of tribulations for that end. Even for material prosperity and name and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penances, otherwise one cannot become an important figure in this material world. Why then should there not be several types of penances for the perfection of devotional service? An easygoing life and attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. An easygoing life and attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. So, and if we go to, let me see, if we go to what you call it, 322, in Bhagavad Gita 322, so if you read the translation, it says, "O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor do I have anything to obtain, yet I'm engaged in prescribed duties." And can you go to the next one for 323? For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. And then next verse, 324. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put into ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would therefore thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So the principle of penance is actually to be performing one's prescribed duties. So what Krishna is saying here, just as you are performing penance to come back to God, I am performing penance to be able to arrange for things for you. So it's not that it's a kind of penance. He's kind of setting the path. We'll go back to the verse, Prabhu, the 1.5, I think, 1.29.
2.924.
Yeah. So he says, he says in executing penance. So what he's doing is that Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, he wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. The order is received from the Lord either directly or through the bona fide spiritual master. And to execute that order, however painstaking, is a severe type of penance. So one who follows the principle, so the principle of penance, is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. So the Lord also arranges for this ability to perform this penance, and that is his penance. That is, he performs his. He also, what to say? If you look at in the Bhagavatam, there is a mention of what Krishna's daily routine, and Krishna also if you look at the 8, there are every day of the 24 hours is divided into 8 segments of 3 hours each. And what happens in 24 hours is that you're supposed to do different things at different times, bathing, morning ablutions, and things like that. Then you have to go visit your elders, and there are all kinds of interesting things. I remember when I was visiting Nath Dwara. When you visit Nath Dwara to meet Srinathji, at that time outside on the walls, you will see that Krishna's pastimes at different times of the day. When at 1 o'clock he sits down to eat, then evening he goes, does this, and morning he takes the cows out for grazing. Then he comes, and so they have all the 8 pastimes of Krishna, the Ashtalila as they call it. His daily routine is displayed through paintings. So he also performed, even though he was a supreme personality Godhead, he also, what you call it, took a spiritual master, things like that. So in other words, when he says, by this, I create this cosmos by such penance, what he means is the concept, the principle of penance, the concept of Krishna consciousness is not an escapist philosophy that we avoid something and then in the hope of going some. And that's why Prabhupada says, an easygoing life and attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. So very often we think, even the normal modern people, when you talk to them, oh, just we tell them chant and be happy, chant and be happy. They think, oh, why don't you people go to work? Why don't you do this? We are doing all that. We are doing all that. Don't worry. We are not lazy people. We are only being lazy intelligent. The differences among the 4 kinds of intelligence that are there is the lazy intelligent, the busy intelligent, the lazy fool, and the busy fool. The lazy intelligent is a Brahmana. The busy intelligent is a Kshatriya, because the person is busy organizing yatras, and you have to organize this, you have to organize that, and that's a busy intelligence. Then the lazy fool is a Vaishyas who's into, whose goal is to produce food and things like that. The lazy thing, he's always, creating an economic situation which is comfortable. And the busy fool is a Shudra. He's always busy, like a headless chicken. He's just busy. But what is he busy for? No one knows. No, even if you ask him, he won't know why I'm busy. He just wants to be busy. So hopefully we are in the first category. We are lazy intelligent. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you. So is this something like this, that Krishna loves, Krishna plays, Krishna performs different pastimes, and Krishna also does penances. And all of these so Krishna loves, Krishna plays, Krishna does many different pastimes, and Krishna also does penance. So this is also transcendental. This is not right.
Yes, it is transcendental. Absolutely, it is transcendental. But it also sets an example for us. We can know how to organize that day the way Krishna does it. We can organize that day that way.
Sure. Thank you very much. So next question is.
I mean, we definitely can't imitate. We can't have Rasa Leela, that's for sure. Yeah. So we can't imitate, but we can organize the day according to that.
Right. Thank you very much. Does anyone has any question or any comment? Okay, if not, we move on to the next question, which is 8th question from 3.2.17 purport. Okay, so the question is, morally, Vasudeva was bound to deliver Krishna to the hands of Kamsa because he had promised to turn over all his children. But out of his great love for Krishna, he broke his promise, and the Lord was very pleased with Vasudeva for his transcendental mentality. He did not want to disturb the intense affection of Vasudeva, and thus he agreed to be carried by his father to the house of Nanda and Yashoda. And just to test the intense love of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna fell down in the waters of Yamuna while his father was crossing the river. Vasudev became mad after his child and he tried to recover him in the midst of rising river. So the question is, Prabhuji, in 10th canto, we don't find this narration, this pastime, that Krishna fall in the river while Vasudeva was taking him across Yamuna.
Yes, Prabhu. We don't find this pastime in a Krishna book, or we don't find this pastime in the 10th canto, because again, what happens is, if you look at, for example, the 9th canto, the pastimes of what do you call it, Ramchandra is given, but it's given in a very brief way, because Ramayana is actually what you call it, the main scripture for Lord Ramchandra. In a kind of similar way, if you look at some of the other commentaries by Sanatan Goswami, like Brihad Bhagavatamrita and other places, there are a lot more details. And even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, I'm only describing the Leelas of Chaitanya in a very summary way, very brief way. But more details can be got from Vrindavan Das Thakur's, compilation or his narration of Chaitanya pastimes and all that. So the Bhagavatam does not give all, when Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, he does not give all the details of Krishna's, all the different details of Krishna's pastimes. He gives a summary version of Krishna's pastimes. So there are a lot of things in the, there are a lot of other pastimes that you see in the writings of other acharyas, which are there, which are not there in the Bhagavatam. And I believe that this is, so Prabhupada is picking this pastime from one of those Brihad Bhagavatamrita and one of those other scriptures by the acharyas. And this is what I would say. He very rarely does this. He doesn't do it very often, but there are times when Prabhupada, Prabhupada has always said that his purpose are his personal ecstasies, and so it could be that this could be just one of those places where he gives more details than what is given in the Bhagavatam or in the Krishna book.
Thanks. That's very clear, Prabhu. Thank you. Next question is from 3.2.20 purport. So therefore, I'm highlighting it. Therefore, Shishupal achieved oneness with the Lord by merging in the impersonal glare of his body called Brahmajyoti. Right? Now, the question is, wasn't Shishupal one of the Jaya Vijay, and they had boon to go back to Vaikuntha after they take 3 births? So, they had already taken 3 births, like Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravan, Kumbhakaran, and this was the 3rd. So why is that he achieved oneness and went into Brahmajyoti instead of going back to Vaikuntha and being Jaya Vijay?
If you can take up 7.147. 7 Bhagavatam 7.147.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go down in the purport, it says that therefore at the end of thing,
although they visibly enter the body of
yes,
Krishna, they factually re-entered Vaikuntha as the doorkeepers of Lord Vishnu. Through
correct.
Lord Krishna's body, they return to Vaikuntha, although they seem to have attained Sayuja Mukti in Krishna's body.
Right. So Prabhupada explains it there. He explains it that they seemingly attained Sayuja Mukti, they merged into his body, but actually afterwards they went to Vaikuntha Loka back as Jaya and Vijay. So I hope that answers the question.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
yeah, so they didn't stop at only Sayuja Mukti.
Mm-hmm. So next is from
7.147.
yeah. From the translation. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, lies down in the water from the seat of Ananta. with his eyes closed, and the inhabitants of Janaloka planets offer uh, onto the Lord their glorious prayers with folded hands. So the question is, what happens to different planets in partial and full devastations? As some places it states Brahmaloka isn't, and some says it does. Like it is all about, the question is about annihilation. Which planets are annihilated during partial and full devastation?
So first of all, we know that there are 14 annihilations in one day of Brahma for after every Manu. There's one thing, and sometimes they say it's not an annihilation, it's just a thing. So there's a partial annihilation that happens in 14 annihilations in one day of Manu. And I mean, in one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. And then when Brahma sleeps, there's another partial annihilation. And then finally, at the end of Brahma's life, there's a final total annihilation. Now, in the total annihilation, what happens is that all the planet, the entire material cosmos gets absorbed into the Garbhadaksha Vishnu. It gets absorbed, the entire material cosmos. In the partial annihilations, it is said that the lower planetary systems, not the higher planets, the lower, when you say lower planetary systems, it means Maharloka, Tapaloka, Jnanaloka, Satyaloka, and Brahmaloka. Those planetary systems, they tend to remain. They don't get annihilated at that time. The other planets get annihilated. Now, with what is the word annihilation is question to ask. There's a conversation, morning walk. In the morning walk conversation that Prabhupada is one of the devotees. No, I think it's Swarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj asked Prabhupada this question: what does the word annihilation means? Does it mean that does the Earth planet get destroyed? He says during partial annihilation, he asks the question: does the Earth planet get destroyed? And Prabhupada says, no, not destroyed. It gets overrun by water. It gets inundated by water. So in other words, this whole concept of, that's why the Matsya avatar is the first avatar, because all the planets are inundated by water. They're not, when they say annihilated, it just means that the waves become so big and global warming becomes so big that the entire Earth, I mean, everybody's worried about global warming today. So they're correct. If the global warming becomes pretty big, then the entire Earth will be inundated with water. So so they don't get annihilated per se, but they get inundated with water. And when the next creation takes place, then all these planets again start functioning. So that's my understanding, Prabhu, that there are 14 annihilations in one day of Brahma, plus one annihilation when he takes rest, plus one annihilation when he's at the end of his life after 100 years. But that last annihilation is when the entire cosmos gets absorbed in Garbhadaksha Vishnu. Where the other annihilations, the lower planetary systems get annihilated, but annihilated means they get overrun by the water, the cosmic water, and they get flooded. And the higher planetary systems don't get annihilated during that time. And Prabhupada specifically mentions Tapaloka, Maharloka, and I think somewhere in the second canto these details are given. Second canto, I believe in. I'm not sure about it, but I think it's second canto 2, 3, 11, 3, 10, 9, and 1, 3, 15 might have these things, if I remember right. I'm not sure, but those might be places where you can refer to for these partial annihilation, where Prabhupada actually talks about these planets, these high planets remaining.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Prabhuji, just one follow-up question on this. In the partial annihilation, when this, I mean, everything flooded with water, so it enters into again Garbhodaksha Vishnu, or
Not during the partial annihilation. Garbhadaksha Vishnu, it only goes to the full annihilation.
full annihilation?
Yeah, partial annihilation, the water withdraws. I mean, and then the thing, it's almost like after a rainy storm, the floods come and they flood your house, and then afterwards, when when the rain is gone, then the flood goes back, and the house is free again.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you
And
so much.
actually, and in this regard, there's another side interesting note to see. I mean, when I was reading this section at one time, that I think I don't know why there's a huge fire that takes place in the lower planetary systems or something like that. So then what happens is the Maharloka people, they move to the Tapaloka because becomes too hot for them to stay there. So they migrate to Tapaloka and they stay there. It's an interesting migration problem they have even then. So sometimes it can get too hot even in the higher planetary systems, and they have to migrate to another planet to take care.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Next question is, Kumaras being impersonalists, how did they reach Vaikuntha?
That answer, I believe, is given in. Is it? Let me see. That should be. If you go to 3:15:26. And you see that upon reaching the Vaikuntha, by the dint of their mystic potency performance, by dint of the mystic yoga performance, so what happens is there is a possibility, like in the Prabhupada does explain about Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni, even though he was so-called not a devotee, even though he was so-called not a devotee, he also was free to travel to Vaikuntha Loka very often. He would, we know that pastime with Ambarish Maharaj when he was being chased by the thing, he went to. So there are sometimes this particular siddhi where, your by dint of perfection of in yoga, that you can become lighter and then the air and all that, and then you can reach Vaikuntha Loka. It says that the rishis of 4 Kumaras reach Vaikuntha Loka by becoming lighter and then heavier, and thus passing over space over the material world. And Prabhupada does talk of Durvasa Muni being another person who managed to go to Vaikuntha Loka by the dint of his in the purport itself down there below last line. It says it is understood that in 1 year Durvasa Muni traveled everywhere. It's 5 lines from the bottom, Prabhu, after Maharaj Ambarish. There you go. It is understood that in 1 year Durvasa Muni traveled everywhere and went into the spiritual sky to meet Lord Narayana. So you can reach by perfection in mystic yoga. But it is said, I don't have reference to this. I can't state it. But I know that somewhere I heard. I'm not sure if Maharaj said it. I'm not sure where I heard. But if you can visit Vaikuntha Loka, but you don't stay there. You can visit by dint of spiritual mystic yoga. You can visit Vaikuntha Loka, but you can't stay there. To stay there, you have to be engaged in devotional service. You don't have any mystic yogis in Vaikuntha Lokas. They can visit and come back.
Sure. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Any question on this? Any comment? Anything? Okay, so next is from 3:5:45.
And one more thing, by the way, is that in 3:15:27, the next verse also, you will see that they were stopped at the 7th gate. And that's when they were stopped at the 7th gate, then Narayana comes out to meet them there. So they manage to go through 6 gates, but they don't go to the 7th gate. They get stopped there by Jay and Vijay.
Right.
And then Narayana comes out to meet them. Yeah, sorry, the next question, Prabhu.
So the next question is 315. Wait. 3540. Okay. So from the translation, O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees whose one and only aim is to transcendentally enjoy your activities. Okay. The question is, demigods were praying. So did the demigod remember all the past things? They are praying that material nature is not good for people even before is yet to be formed.
1 second. Could you repeat the question again, Prabhu?
Yes. So this is from 3rd canto, 5th chapter.
Yeah, I'm reading that. Could you? Yeah, good. Could you
So
repeat the question?
the question is demigod. Okay. Yeah, I'm reflecting. So demigods were praying. So did the demigod remember all the past things? They are praying that material nature is not good for people even before it is yet to be formed. Because I think so these are the sense devtas who are praying.
Yeah,
And sense
yeah.
devtas are praying before the Karya Shakti and
Correct. So the answer is yes. The demigods, because they are put in charge of these different elements, the Mahatattva had already been created, and the demigods know that from the Mahatattva, all these other creations are starting to be created, and each demigod was put in charge, and they do know from the past that that this material energy is not good for people. Thing. And in fact, if you go to in the same canto, same chapter, you go to text 48, 2 verses after this, 3 verses. Go to text 48. Yeah, you see this. The demigods say, "O original person, we are therefore but yours only. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the 3 modes of nature, and for this reason we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure." So they do know that in the past, that the demigods they were not able to work together for pleasing Krishna. And then if you go to 51, the last verse of this same chapter, you go to 51. It says, "O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render your service in different departments of subsequent creation." So they say that, in the past, we know that we have not been able to work together. We have been working independently and things like that. And we know that has not pleased you very well. So please give us the directions by which we can act in such a way that it will be for your pleasure. So, and it will be, and give us the potency and render you the service in different departments. So you can see that. So what happens is when the Mahatattva, we talked about annihilation, right? So when the jivas go into they go into Mahavishnu, they come back in the same positions. They come back in the same position, all the jivas, because when creation takes place, that's a side question that is there. When creation takes place, according to Darwin, according to our understanding, that it is an evolution of species, that we come from a microbe, and from a microbe we get a multicellular organism. From a multicellular organism we get into a amphibian body, fish body. Then from fish we become mammals, land body, and then a tree and then we become vertebrate and all that. That is the Darwin theory of evolution. But that has been disproved by Bhagavatam and by the Vaishnava Acharyas. when Brahma created, he created all the species at the same time. It's not that first he created the fish and first he created the virus and the amoeba and all that, and then he created the fish and then he created the. No, he created all the species at the same time. So then the question will come, then how did all the species come at the same time? How did Brahma decide that somebody should be a tree and somebody should be an ant and somebody should be a cat and somebody should be a dog? How did that happen? That is because when they went into Mahavishnu, they were a cat or whatever, and they had not completed that thing, and they had to come back as cat to further progress, or they had to come back as a tree to further. So what was the original person? So the demigods also went to the Mahavishnu, and they come back as demigods to continue the service and progress from that towards Vaikuntha.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Any further question on this?
Prabhuji, so here that regular transmigration of soul doesn't happen, and you're saying that they will take the same form and similar
Correct. They will take the because they were in a certain form when the devastation took place. So you can understand it from the perspective that they had not completed that form's the journey in that form. The thing had not been completed yet. So they come back in that form to be given another chance to progress in devotional life and thereby get to Vaikuntha.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Thanks, Prabhuji. So we move on to the next question, which is 3.8.13 translation.
13 is an unlucky number, Prabhu. Anyway. so I don't know. Okay.
So this is from the translation. The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. So the question is, isn't it that all comes from mode of ignorance?
Okay. Now, nothing can be created in ignorance. Let us understand. The word ignorance itself means what do you call it? The word ignorance. So the Mahatattva, yes, the question is correct in the sense that the elements, the original elements that were created, the original building blocks of the cosmic universe, namely the Mahatattva, is ignorant, is from ignorance, in the sense that it's like saying the chair is ignorant because the chair does not feel anything, it does not move, it does not, you can break that, you can hit the chair, you can do anything, the chair will not move. But if you want the chair to be used in some way, then if you want the chair to be moved, then you need the mode of passion, you need an external force to move the chair. So the same way the glancing, Brahma is in the mode of passion, and by the glancing of Krishna on the cosmic manifestation, everything gets agitated. So when the ignorance is agitated through the influence of passion, then things get created. So it's a passion that is creating things, not so the elements are in the mode of ignorance. Their source is ignorance, but they themselves will not be able to create without Krishna's, the Krishna through the mode of passion influencing the creation.
Okay, great. Thanks. I think so. This is very clear. Any question or comment on this? We go to the next
and you can see that, in regular life also. The ignorant man is self-destructive, lazy, procrastination. You can see the mode of ignorance by its nature is procrastination, lazy, thing. But passion is all about, okay, let me go forward, let me do something, It's only passion that creates. All this technology and everything, all the technological development that is happening today, it's only because of passion. If you notice, we don't need half the things. We don't need a super Instack pot, and we don't need this, and we don't need that. There's so many things we don't need, but it just gets created because we have nothing else to do with our passion. We have to create something with passion. It's only the mode of goodness, the Satogun, is peaceful. So between lethargy, which is mode of ignorance, creating unnecessary things, which is mode of passion, we have to attempt to get to the mode of goodness, which is peacefulness and being satisfied with less, with simple living, high thinking. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Next question.
Thanks, Prabhuji. So next question is from 3.11.35, the translation. In the beginning of the first half of Brahma's life, there was a millennium called Brahmakalpa, wherein Lord Brahma appeared. The birth of the Vedas was simultaneous with Brahma's birth. So, so the question is, isn't Padmakalpa the first kalpa when Brahmaji was born from Garbhodaksha Vishnu?
That's a good question. Let's go to 3:11:38.
3:11:38?
Yeah, same chapter.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so here Prabhupada says the duration of 2 parts of Brahma's life are above mentioned. And then he goes on to say in the purport, he says, I worship Govinda. Okay, and then continue down the two. Okay, so where's that? He says that that Brahmakalpa, once again, just go, is it in the beginning? Okay, the purport, somewhere it says, Lord, listen a second, I worship Govinda. I thought he said it in this purport as human form. One second, let me see where he says that.
Could I check in the previous purport? Here,
Yeah.
it's saying something according to Padma Puran in 30 days of Brahma.
Did you get it, Prabhu? What did you say?
According to Padma Puran, in the previous, like in the same purport.
In the same purport, sorry. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, good.
In 30 days of Brahma, many kalpas take place.
No,
Such
I
as,
think so. No, not this one. And in somewhere else, he says, I'm trying to, I thought it was in the same, this thing, what did it say? In I thought it was in 338. And I thought it was in 38. Just let me see that again. He says clearly, he says that that Padmakalpa, Varakalpa, and this thing, Brahmakalpa are all the same. He says that. Huh? 37. Prabhu, try 37. Ragan, yeah, see there he says the different millenniums known as Brahma, Padma, and Varakalpa appear a little puzzling for the layman. There are some scholars who think these kalpas to be one and the same. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the Brahma Kalpa is in the beginning of the first half appears to be the Padma Kalpa. We can therefore simply abide by the text and understand that the present millennium is the second half of the duration of the life of Brahma. So he says the Brahma Kalpa is the same as Padma Kalpa. It appears. That's what he says. And also he says that it's very puzzling for the layman. So that's a good thing. So he lets us, he says, don't worry if you're puzzled, just accept the Bhagavatam. just don't expect to understand Bhagavatam fully. Just accept it. I think that's the best thing to do. The next few questions, let's accept the Bhagavatam as it is. Because after this is very complicated questions.
is it?
I'm not very good in cosmology. Anyway.
So this is from.
So in the same, so in 37, I think is the answer of that this thing anyway.
So I'll read this. The question is from the purport. Brahma is addressed here in his Vibhu and as the personality of Godhead. He is the personality of Godhead's incarnation of mode of passion in the material world. He is non-different in the representative sense from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore the influence of time cannot affect him. The influence of time, which manifests as past, present, and future, cannot touch higher personalities like Brahma and other demigods. Sometimes demigods and great sages who have attained such perfection are called Trikalagya. So the question is, as Brahma Loka is in material world, how is it not impacted by time?
That is kind of simple in a sense. What happens is we know, for example, there's something called Jivan Mukta, that is a person is liberated even while living. Hanuman is an example of who's known as Chiranjeevi, eternally living, eternally young, things like that. So what happens is, that is why if you say even acharyas, we don't say birth day and death day. We say Vyasa Puja and Tirubhav, appearance and disappearance. So just as Krishna appears and disappears, the acharyas also appear and disappear. So what happens is pure devotees appear and disappear. So in that sense, time does not affect them. You will see that time does not. So these devotees in the higher planetary systems are also of a similar nature. Time does not affect them directly. So in that sense, they are personalities who have achieved liberation by the dint of their devotional service to Krishna.
Like,
And Trikal Yagya, actually the Trikal Yagya means they know the past, the present, and the future. So they are kind of in that sense aware, and time has not had an impact. And there are different kinds of impact on time. One is time impact in terms of say bodily changes. You can say that the time impacts some bodily changes. But it's like, for example, in the case of Prabhupada, you did see him get old. You did see him leaving his body. But in terms of consciousness, you could see that Prabhupada was not impacted at all by time. He could still remember everything. And he even said that in my past life, I was this, I can remember my past life, and I can things like that. So, I mean, like Narada Muni, for example, you can see he remembers his past life as a maidservant's son. And Vyasadeva asked this question in the 5th chapter of first canto. In fact, he says, how is it that you're able to remember your past life? That is because time does not have an impact on him. He's able to remember even the past life. So time is different. So in that case, these personalities don't get impacted by time.
Valmiki is another example. He wrote Ramayana, and there may many other sages like that.
What's that, Prabhu?
Valmiki, he also wrote Ramayana, and he
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that's a good. He's also a good example of how time did not get impacted.
Okay, so we move on to the next question, which is from 3.16 from 31. So all these questions have been asked by one devotee. I'll name the devotee after this question because this is the last question from that devotee. Translation: the Lord assured the two Vaikuntha inhabitants, Jay and Vijay, by practicing the mystic yoga system in anger, you will be cleansed by sin of disobeying the Brahmanas, and within a short time return to me. So why is it mystic yoga? The question is by practicing the mystic yoga system in anger.
The best way to answer this question, Prabhu, is this: that if you notice, the devotees Jay and Vijay were given the benediction of being born as demons for 3 lifetimes. So if you notice, Prabhupada always, one definition of Krishna consciousness is to always remember, never forget him. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's one of the definitions of Krishna consciousness. Now, Kamsa was always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. But he was remembering Krishna with envy. He was remembering Krishna with the desire to kill Krishna. And Prabhupada explains this, that even though Kamsa was remembering Krishna 24/7, he's not considered a devotee. Forget about being a pure devotee, he's not even considered a devotee. Why is that? Because he was not thinking of Krishna in a favorable way. So if you go by that definition, then what happens is, since these devotees were going to be born in demon families, the way the demons progress in life is through mystic yoga. that is how they, for example, Hiranyakashipu was, he did an entire, he went through an entire meditational process, so much so that Brahma had to come and tell him to stop and things like that. So if you notice, they all have done the program. Ravana was extremely powerful due to his mystic yoga. Hiranyakashipu became powerful due to his mystic yoga, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, his mystic yoga is what do you call it? It's a demons naturally use their mystic yoga to to achieve their goals. But in the problem, what happens is when they do that, because they're Jai Vijay in the original form, their mystic yoga ends up being devotional service. and they do such kind of mystic yoga that Krishna has to personally come with to kill them. And in the process, they have a little, what do you call it? I mean, the thing is that if you notice, Krishna comes in, he comes as Narsimha to take care of Hiranyakashipu. He comes as Varaha, like so on and so forth. So it is their mystic yoga that invites Krishna to come and engage with them, and thereby have to deal with them in the thing. So that's why the Jain Vijayas were told that since you're going into the demon families, it'll be through mystic yoga that you will have association with me. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for answering all these questions. These questions were mystery for us for long, and these questions were put forward by Nikita Mataji, who has been kind of very scrutinizingly studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Next, so Prabhuji, there are a few more questions. Two questions were put forward to me by Rajesh Prabhu, but I don't see him here because he's traveling. So I'll kind of skip them. If you have
we can answer those questions so that it can be in the recording for him if he wants.
Okay, so let me then share the screen again. So these questions are from 3.2.16 and 17, bewildering acts. Although all powerful, just a second. Although all powerful, he left parents as if in fear of enemy. Lord begged pardon from parents for his inability to protect them. Why inability?
You see that now Krishna could have, for example, can you tell me what 3.2.16 and can you show me the verses?
Yes, I'm just opening it. So the translation is, when I think of, and this is by Uddhava to Vidura. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison, house of Vasudeva, although he's unborn, how he went away from his father's protection to Vraj and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy, and how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress. And 17 is, Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents for their inability to serve their feet due to being away from home because of great fear of Kamsa. He said, "Oh mother, oh father, please excuse us for this inability. All this behavior of Lord gives me pain at heart."
Okay, so this is the Leela of the Lord, Prabhu, because what happens is, first of all, he did come with his 400 form. He did appear in front of Devaki and Vasudeva, and but it's almost like, for example, it would be very similar to the Damodar pastime, that he's a supreme Lord. Why should he be afraid of Mother Yashoda and run away and with tears in his eyes and as mascara thing? So here also what happens is that Krishna, even though he could have just come out of the prison and just killed Kamsa and gone and finished the whole Leela. But then we wouldn't have the Vrindavan Leela, we wouldn't have any of the other Leelas happening. So because the Vrindavan Leela had to be there, he made it look like he's afraid and that he has to hide. I mean, he made his father feel that he has to hide. I mean, even though Vasudeva was supposed to hand over the child, he made his, he made Vasudeva gave him the idea that, no, don't hand me over. You take me to this thing and you bring the child back and so on and so forth. So that is the main thing, Prabhu. So it's the Leela of the Lord, and so his so-called inability is not exactly inability in the sense that he didn't have the capacity, but the circumstances did not allow him to reveal his true godliness, that he was a supreme personality Godhead. He was playing the role of a small boy, and he was playing the role in Vrindavan, and he wanted Kamsa to take more action. Because he wanted, if he had only killed Kamsa, then I mean, if he had gone directly from prison, he would have only killed Kamsa. But he wanted all the other, he wanted Kamsa to send all the other demons first, and he killed all of them one by one. And then after he killed all the demons, then he came to Kamsa and said, "Okay, I'm ready for you now. I'll take care of you." So that's the reason. So it's not inability in the sense that he didn't have the capacity, but the circumstances were arranged in such a way that he was not able. He had to take his time to what do you call it, come and serve his parents, or come and be with Devaki and Vasudev, because the main thing was their role was to, what do you call it, in the total thing, their role was to give birth to him, and Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, it was in their thing to bring Krishna, to take care of Krishna through his childhood pastimes. So that's the reason. So we can stop here then, Prabhu.
There's one last question from him. Krishna considered Yadu dynasty burden on earth and planned quarrel among themselves. So the question is, Krishna was born in Yadu family. By Krishna's association, they shall naturally be purified. Why didn't it happen? On the other hand, how Brajvasis have a special mercy of Krishna?
Well, as far as the Yadus are concerned, they should be not. Why didn't it happen? What was supposed to happen?
So it is mentioned here that after the, I'm sharing the screen, right? This verse which Prabhuji has quoted. After the end of Battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, "The abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshayonis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be more unbearable burden." And then the next verse, when they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red and because of drinking this. So it's like,
Okay.
it's said it's a burden.
So the thing is that, see, in the natural course of events, there has to be a constant flow, thing. It's not in the natural course of events that that Chiranjeevis will always be present at all times. I mean, because they are nobody. If Krishna does not take away his paraphernalia, because the Yadu dynasty came because of Krishna. They came to be, they're associates of Krishna. So if the associates of Krishna continue staying here, then it would just be a, what do you call it? It would not be appropriate for that to happen. So what Krishna is saying, that if I have to take them back with them, so how do I have to take them back with me? But I can't just do that directly. So what I will do is I will arrange that, even though they cannot be intoxicated, even though they cannot, they will not be, they cannot be, what's the word, to get intoxicated and all that. So therefore, what I'll do is I'll arrange for them to get intoxicated. I'll arrange for them to have fights among themselves. And how will I do it? I will do it by the way that they will offend the devotees, the sadhus, by that, by that pregnant pastime that we know, the boys go and teach, to ask the sadhus to predict whether this person will be a boy or a girl. Well, it was an iron ball that was there. So this is Krishna's arrangement. This is different from, it's not that they were not purified. They are eternal associates of Krishna. They're eternal associates of Krishna. But Krishna arranged this to happen so that they could come back to the Vaikuntha Lokas, to Goloka. So that's the reason that that this was arranged for them to do that. Then,
Right.
and what was the, yeah,
That was the question. And he was saying that why special mercy for Brajvasis as against, Yadus are said to be burdened, while Krishna had a special mercy on Brajvasis.
No, the Yadus are not directly burdened. What was happening is that, see, there's a difference in pastimes. That Yadus came to the material world to perform, to assist Krishna in these pastimes in Mathura and Dwarka. In Mathura and Dwarka, to assist Krishna in his pastimes, the Yadus came to assist there. While the Vrajavasis are seen, that is an internal pastime of Krishna, which is that eternal pastime that goes on, which Krishna was showing. That the Vraja pastimes, it is told, our ancestors tell us that it is actually Krishna giving us it's almost like a trailer of what you will do, be looking forward to when you go to Goloka Vrindavan, when you become a pure devotee and you reach Goloka Vrindavan. These are the kind of activities that are going to be happening there. Which, on the side note, as the last note before closing up, I always find it very funny because I always think about it that, having been born in a city, I was born in Hyderabad, then I grew up in Bombay. I never saw animals in my life. I never saw a cow in my life. And the first time I saw a cow in Vrindavan and all that, I was extremely scared of the cow when the cow came to eat from my hand. So then later on, as time has gone by, I've been more and more thinking that I should go and live in some kind of rural place and live among cows and all that, or spend some time among cows. Because what I realized is, when we land in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna willing, hopefully sometime in next 10,000 lives, we might go to Goloka. I mean, now that we've accepted Krishna, hopefully he will take us sometime. He can't ever keep us here for eternal. We'll be a burden otherwise. If he keeps us forever in the material world, we'll become a burden to the material world. Because the people want to enjoy this material world. If we hang around too long, then they'll say, usually Maharaj would joke with me that, he asked me once, he said, Purnendu, do you know why we are called Goswamis? He said, because when initially you say, come Swami, come Swami, come Swami. After 3 days, you say, go Swami, go Swami, go Swami. Because you can only tolerate us for 2 or 3 days. After 3 days, after some time, because after you leave, we might want to go to a restaurant, we may want to watch a movie, we might want to live a normal life, so-called normal life we're living. But when you are living with us, I can't live normally. I have to live according to, you'll ask me to do Bhagavatam for 4 hours a day. You'll ask me to do this, chant Bhagavad Gita, this whole thing. So it's too much pressure to have you all the time. So come Swami, come Swami, come Swami. After 3 days, go Swami, go Swami, go Swami. So anyway, so Swamis can be very, on a good note, they can be very good, but on the other note, our normal lives will get, what do you call it, affected.
Hampered.
Yeah, pampered. So therefore, what happens is, Krishna willing, now that we have all taken up to Krishna consciousness and Bhagavatam, he will take us back sooner or later. The thing is, my concern is when I go there, if Krishna tells me, okay, Purnendu, now it's time to go with the cows, and I don't know how to take a cow to grazing, I'll say, if I go to him and I ask Krishna, we say, what is a cow, Krishna? He'll say, buddy, you go back to the material world. You're totally useless. They're not supposed to be here. Because this is known as Goloka. It's land of cows. And you don't want to do it. Then what's the use of you coming here and spending time with me? So I was thinking, okay, you know what? I better go learn some Go Seva before I go to Vrindavan, before I go to Goloka Vrindavan. Because otherwise Krishna will get very upset with me. Because everything is, and 2 things. I should learn how to serve cows. The other thing is I should learn how to make milk sweets. Because only milk is there. We don't have computers. We don't have, anything else directly. So learn to make milk sweets, because Krishna likes a lot of milk sweets. So that's my future plan, Prabhu. How to serve cows and how to make milk sweets. So that I can get into Krishna's planet. On a lighter note, anyway. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I heard in one of the classes that this burden is not burden of peace, but burden of love.
Yes.
So
That's nice. Nicely put.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Prabhuji, like we are already at 11:20. I know some devotees have other questions as well. I'm not sure how to take it forward.
No, we can do another session maybe, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody also, they have got
It's
the household
already-
duties also to perform. They have to cook for the children and
otherwise they will
children
start saying, go Swami, go Swami. Go
exactly. They'll say, go Swami, go Swami. I think 2 hours is enough. After that, it's go Swami time.
So thank you very much, Prabhuji. Really, really appreciate. Like today, all these things have been clarified very nicely by you, and then we will always take this opportunity to always, have you with us to clarify those doubts. Whether you are in US, whether you are in Braj or Goloka, we will connect you on Zoom.
Yeah, I think you get Zoom in Goloka Vrindavan also now. I think you get Zoom there. But thank you for blessing me that way, Prabhu. Please pray that I can go to Goloka in this lifetime itself. That because it's very difficult to continue. Because seeing the way Kali Yuga is developing right now, I'm really afraid to take another birth again. But I will have to because of my lack of control on my senses and all that. But as I'm getting older, I mean, already having become a senior citizen in that sense, I am kind of, what do you call it, really frightened of coming back because I don't know whether I can survive the level of anxiety and miseries that the material world is giving today. I mean, just traveling in Bangalore from one end of the city to another, I don't know how you're going to chant your rounds after going to work and coming back. I have no idea how people do Mangalati, chant rounds, cook, and then serve prasadam. I don't know. It's like, it's getting crazy, honestly speaking. And this 551 class that we heard in the center, I don't know if all of you, if any of you would listen to the class. If it's not, I think it's there on YouTube. Or you can at least read that 551. It's a very, very powerful. It's considered the seed of our movement. The Krishna consciousness movement depends on 551. And it's in the second paragraph of that purport, Prabhupada actually tells this, he kind of gives a visual of our lives today, of how we go to work and come back. And I don't know how we can have the peaceful way of chanting our rounds after that, or even before that. I have no idea. Because every time I close my eyes to chant rounds, instead of Krishna's face coming to my mind, I get all the traffic and I get everything else. I get a bank manager's face. I get everybody else's face except Krishna's face, for Krishna's feet. So anyway, let's all pray to each other's, bless for each other's blessings so that we might just go back to Goloka Vrindavan in this lifetime. Prabhupada says, don't postpone. Don't say next life. This life itself, we should try our best to go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Anupam Krishna Prabhu, you're going to say something, Prabhu?
Ravi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the nice, knowledge which I got from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranams to you.
Dandavat pranam. Thank you. Thanks all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpaturbhyascha kripa sindhubhyavacha patitanam
Pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishravrinda ki
Jai. Purnendu Krishna Prabhuji ki jai. Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.